GM, General Motors, one of the most iconic car producers in the world, a car company based in Michigan, Detroit, competing with companies such as Ford in the truck wars that are actually happening in America. Great as it is, and awesome as it is, it finally left South Africa in 2017. The question is, why did General Motors slash Chevrolet Dodge and GMC leave South Africa back in 2017? And not only leaving South Africa, but also leaving Australia, India, and Indonesia and other parts of the world back in that very same year. What is actually Chevrolet failing to understand? What is the problem in Chevrolet and why did they leave South Africa? That is happening up next, right here on Love and Cars. My name is Edwin. Stay tuned. You cannot talk about Chevrolet without understanding where it comes from and where it's actually based. In America, Chevrolet is the biggest car producers of all time. It is even competing with Ford when it comes to the truck wars that are actually happening. Remember, trucks are popular in the United States of America right now, coming close to replacing SUVs, and trucks are now viewed as one of the luxury brands in the US of A. Remember, in South Africa, we call trucks, which are called pickup trucks in the US of A, bakkies. They're called utes in Australia. But then, why did Chevrolet leave South Africa back in 2017? Remember, Chevrolet or General Motors right now is filing for bankruptcy, meaning it no longer has money to support any of its business in the United States of America. It is in desperate need of supporters and investors to keep it running as it can be and compete with other car brands. Back in 2017, Chevrolet pulled the plug after it also pulled the plug in Britain, selling its plant and other of the car ownership, such as Vauxhall and Opel, to French rivals car companies known as PSA, which produce cars such as Citroën and Peugeot back in 2016. And in 2017, it announced that it will no longer be manufacturing cars in South Africa and pull the plug in its plant manufacturing cars, which was located in Eastern Cape in Port Elizabeth, selling 30% of its shares that it owned in Isuzu and the plant to Isuzu back then. What does it mean to South Africans who actually own a Chevrolet cars? Well, good news, bad news. The good news is you were given a chance to own your car and still have the service plan and the warranty lasting the period in which it was supposed to end in South Africa, even long when Chevrolet has left South Africa. However, your services would now be provided in an Isuzu dealership. Another thing is all Chevrolet cars that were sold in South Africa will receive their car parts for 10 years, for the next 10 years from 2017, still coming to South Africa, which means from 2017 and 10 years after that, it will be easy for you to find a car part in South Africa and replace your part if your car is actually running out of a part or is giving you problems. But then, the question is, why did Chevrolet leave South Africa and why did it left Australia, India, and Indonesia in the same place? I will focus in South Africa because I'm a South African and I live in South Africa. Well, in South Africa, Chevrolet was struggling to compete with well-established German rivals such as Volkswagen, BMWs, and Mercedes-Benz, and all other car manufacturers such as Audi's, and the newly established Korean car brand, which are actually entering the market in a storm, such as Hyundai and Kia. These car companies knew exactly how the car business in South Africa actually work and what South Africans actually want. If you want to sell cars in South Africa, you need to understand that South Africa is a developing country in the first place. 2, South Africans are extremely loyal. 3, South Africans need a car that will be reliable. In other words, it will run and run without giving them problems. They need a car that is fuel efficient because fuel prices in South Africa always skyrocketing. So if you're selling big cars that consume so much petrol, South Africans will run away from that particular car. Chevrolet cars were failing to compete with Germans and Japanese brands and also Chinese brands and the emerging Indian car brands such as Mahindra and Tata, and Chinese brands such as GWM, JMC, and Geely, which were actually being sold in cheaper prices in South Africa and were flooding the market. Another thing, Chevrolet cars were not as attractive as they were in the interior compared to German cars. Cars such as Volkswagen Polo in 2016 were coming up with a better outdated model of a touchscreen infotainment system, which had so many sophistication and actually gave class to the South Africans, which were actually buying those cars, giving them a sense of a luxury when they were sitting in a cheaper car. So many people flocked into buying Volkswagen Polo, which is why a Polo is extremely popular in South Africa right now. Chevrolet's interior was outdated and it was getting late in catching up with other car brands. And what you need to understand, the South African plant in Port Elizabeth was designed to produce 300,000 cars a year. However, in 2016 and 2017, they only produced 34,000 cars and selling 3,000. Way much lower than their target of selling 50% of that number of cars that I actually said they will produce. Because of that, Chevrolet realized that staying in South Africa was unprofitable, and there was no way that Chevrolet would continue surviving staying in South Africa. It pulled the plug in other parts of the world. It even pulled the plug in South Africa. So what does it mean to South African? Well, if you are owning a Chevrolet car, your car will depreciate in value extremely much, but there are other cars that will hold much their value because they will be known as rare in South Africa, such as the Lumino SS, because that type of a vehicle has been discontinued. So if you have that car, many people will start holding that car and treating them as collective type of a car, wanting to hold on to them and never wanting to let go. So that type of a car will hold its value for such some time, even though Chevrolet will no longer be coming to South Africa. Another thing, this means South Africans will not be receiving any updated model of Chevrolet cars. We'll just be watching them on TV, seeing them on movies, and watching them on YouTube. We will not be getting any new Chevrolet cars. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for me on Love and Cars. My name is Edwin. Catch you next time, and stay safe. Remember, buckle up.